Hello, and thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You. My name is Dr. Sylvia Black, and I want to talk to you today about a book that I have written. It's Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Coloring and Activity Book, and it's a perfect way to celebrate Black history in the year 2021 and beyond. Now, this book is available on barnesandnobles.com. The website at the bottom of your screen. Also, you can go any one of the websites. Okay, and my name is Dr. Sylvia Black, and I'm the author of this book. Now, this book has, very interesting, it's for adults as well as for children. It has pictures to color. Okay, many pictures to color. It has a story about the picture, so the parent can read the picture. I read the story to the child or what have you, or the child can just color the pictures. Okay, lots and lots of pictures to color. Okay, all of them tell a story though, so you're not just coloring. You're not just doing. It has questions and answers at the back. This one has flashcards. This one also has songs to sing. Arts is crafts. There's actually things that you can make. Now this one I put flashcards in. I'm actually developing flashcards to be separate from the book itself. So what it'll do, it'll have the flashcard, and one side will have the question and the other side will have the answer. So I'll flash the card to you. And so if you recognize it, you turn it over, and that'll be the answer on the other side. Also, like I said, I have questions and answers in the back. Okay. I have the dates, the speeches and sermons dates I have. Okay, the dates of each sermon. For example, the very first one that he did was in 1954. It was February 28, 1954. He did the Rediscovering Lost Values. And I'm going to read you a couple of speeches that I have in here. Okay, then the next one was 1955, December 5th. He addressed to the First Montgomery Improvement Association, the MIA mass meeting. So it goes on and it tells you, and then it doesn't have every one of the speeches in here, but it has a lot of them. And I'm going to read a couple of them to you. This book is an excellent resource for adults and children. Okay, I find that I have fun, just going over it a couple of times. Oh, it has charades. The book has charades. Remember charades? I know you all remember charades. Like I said, songs to sing, pantomime games. Okay, and it's called Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Activity and Coloring Book. Okay, available on the website at the bottom of the screen. Okay, now let's see. What do we have here? Okay. Now let me start out with I'm going to just read the biography. Dr. Martin Luther King biography. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born January 15, 1929. And he died April 4th, 1968. He was born Michael Luther King Jr., but later had his name changed to Martin. His grandfather began the family's long tenure as pastors of the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, serving from 1914 to 1931. His father has served from then until the present, and from 1960 until his death, Martin Luther acted as co-pastor. Martin Luther attended the segregated public schools in Georgia. Graduated from high school at the age of 15, he received a BA degree in 1948 from Morehouse College, a distinguished Negro institution of Atlanta from which both his father and grandfather had graduated. After 3 years of theological study at Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania, where he was elected president of a predominantly white senior class, he was awarded the BD in 1951. With the fellowship won at Crozer, he enrolled in graduate studies at Boston University, completing his residence for the doctorate in 1953 and receiving the degree in 1955. In Boston, he met and married Coretta Scott, a young woman of uncommon intellectual and artistic attainments. 2 sons and 2 daughters were born into the family. In 1954, Martin Luther King became pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery. Alabama always had a strong worker for civil rights for members of the race. King was by this time a member of the executive committee of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, otherwise known as the NAACP, the leading organization of its kind in the nation. He was ready then early in December 1955 to accept the leadership of the first great Negro nonviolent demonstration of contemporary times in the United States. The bus boycott described the Gunnar John in his presentation speech in honor of the Lorette. The boycott lasted 382 days. On December 21st, 1956, after the Supreme Court of the United States had declared unconstitutional the laws requiring segregation on buses, Negroes and whites rode the buses as equals. During these days of boycott, King was arrested, his home was bombed, he was subjected to personal abuse, but at the same time he emerged as a Negro leader of the first rank. In 1957, he was elected president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, also known as the SCLC, an organization formed to provide new leadership for the now burgeoning civil rights movements. The ideas for this organization he took from Christianity, its operational techniques from Gandhi. In the 11-year period between 1957 and 1968, King traveled over 6 million miles and spoke over 2,500 times, appearing wherever there was injustice, protest, and action. And meanwhile, he wrote 5 books as well as numerous articles. In these years, he led a massive protest in Birmingham, Alabama that caught the attention of the entire world, providing what he called a coalition of conscience and inspiring his letter from Birmingham jail, a manifesto of the Negro Revolution. He planned the drives in Alabama for the registration of Negroes as voters. He directed the peaceful march in Washington, D.C. of 250,000 people to whom he delivered his address, I Have a Dream. He conferred with President John F. Kennedy and campaigned for President Lyndon B. Johnson. He was arrested upwards of 25 times and assaulted at least 4 times. He was awarded 5 honorary degrees, was named Man of the Year by Time magazine in 1963, and became not only the symbolic leader of American blacks, but also a world figure. At the age of 35, Martin Luther King Jr. was the youngest man to have received the Nobel Peace Prize. When notified of his selection, he announced that he would turn over the prize money of $54,123 to the furtherance of the Civil Rights Movement. On the evening of April 4th, 1968, while standing on the balcony of the motel room in Memphis, Tennessee, where he was to lead a protest march in sympathy with striking garbage workers of that city, he was assassinated.
While sitting there autographing books, a demented black woman came up. The only question I heard from her was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" And I was looking down writing, and I said yes. The next minute I felt something beating on my chest. Before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to Harlem Hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon. That blade had gone through, and the x-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, the main artery. And once that's punctured, you're drowned in your own blood. That's the end of you. Came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I had merely sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later, they allowed me, after the operation, after my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, to move around in the wheelchair in the hospital. They allowed me to read some of the mail that came in, and from all over the states and the world, kind letters came in. I read a few, but one of them I will never forget. I had received one from the president and the vice president. I've forgotten what those telegrams said. I'd received a visit and a letter from the governor of New York, but I've forgotten what that letter said. Yes. But there was another letter that came from a little girl, a young girl, who was a student at the White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter, and I'll never forget it. It said simply, "Dear Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School." She said, "While it should not matter, I would like to mention that I'm a white girl. I read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering. And I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. I'm simply writing you to say that I'm so happy that you didn't sneeze. I want to say tonight that I too am happy that I didn't sneeze, because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960, when students all over the South started sitting in at lunch hours. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream and taken the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1962. The Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. And whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they are going somewhere, because a man can't ride your back unless it is bent. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been here in 1963. Black people of Birmingham, Alabama, aroused the conscience of this nation, brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have had a chance later that year in August to try to tell America about a dream that I had had. If I had sneezed, I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of God. I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. One day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children be able to sing with new meaning, my country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring when we gather. When we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free.
History of We Shall Overcome. It was the most powerful song of the 20th century. It started out in church pews and picket lines, inspired one of the greatest freedom movements in U.S. history, and went on to topple governments and bring about reform all over the world. Word for word, the short, simple lyrics of We Shall Overcome might be some of the most influential words in the English language. We Shall Overcome has its roots in African American hymns from the early 20th century and was first used in the protest song in 1945 when striking tobacco workers in Charleston, South Carolina sang it on their picket line. By the 1950s, the song had been discovered by the young activists of the African American Civil Rights Movement, and it quickly became the movement's unofficial anthem. Its verses were sung in protest marches and in sit-ins throughout clouds of tear gas and under rows of police batons, and it brought courage and comfort to bruised, frightened activists as they waited in jail cells wondering if they would survive the night. When the long years of struggle ended and President Lyndon B. Johnson vowed to fight for voting rights for all Americans, he included a final promise: we shall overcome. In the decades since, the song has circled the globe and has been embraced by civil rights and pre-democracy movements in dozens of nations worldwide, from Northern Ireland to Eastern Europe, from Berlin to Beijing, and from South Africa to South America. Its message of solidarity and hope has sung in dozens of languages, in presidential palaces, and in dark prisons. And it continues to lend its strength to all people struggling to be free. Its message of solidarity and hope has sung in dozens of languages, in presidential palaces, and in dark prisons. And it continues to lend its strength to all people struggling to be free. As you listen to We Shall Overcome, think about the reasons it has brought strength and support to so many people for so many years. And remember that someone somewhere is singing it right now.